Hi, I'm Robin Gulley.
I'm James Farnsworth.
We are Regents at the University of Minnesota, and we are here to take a first shot at doing videos from the Regents office. And actually, we're coming to you from the Minnesota State Fair.
Yes.
We found a quiet spot in the midst of a very, very busy day. James and I both spend time during the fair working here, him more than me.
Yeah, it's I'm here for about 16 days a year, so a couple days leading up to the fair and then all 12 days, and it's a lot of fun.
I don't spend quite that many days at the fair, but I do. My regular job is working at the Minnesota AFL-CIO, so we run the Labor Pavilion. And if you're ever coming, if you're coming to the fair this weekend or whatever, I'd love it if you stopped by and said hello. I'll be back Sunday morning, but James is here literally.
I'm here all the time, so might run into you.
Yeah. We wanted to take a few minutes to talk about, and by the way, we're at the state fair, so if this door opens, there's going to be like music and stuff, but it's all good.
So bear with us, yeah.
But we figured we'd give this a shot. We wanted to talk a little bit about the special meeting that we had for the Regents the other day, about the two things that came out, the president's report and about the divestment resolution. And we're not here to give a full overview of everything that's happened or give everyone's opinions or anything, but really wanted to sort of talk about why we understand this came up, and also like what we were kind of thinking about when this stuff came up. And so obviously this has been a really big issue for the university and for the world in this past year. And so this is, something that's been really like a big part of
campus dialogue and action. Higher ed institutions all across the country are grappling with these issues, how these issues relate to engagement on campus, and what does protesting look like, and what is free speech, and kind of the intersection of all those complicated but really important issues. And we certainly had those topics come to us or come to fruition at the University of Minnesota, and so it's been something on the board's radar and President Cunningham's radar after she started on July 1st, and so we took some action after some previous discussion at a special meeting on Tuesday, and thought by way of this video series, which we hope to continue, would be good venue to provide a little contextualization, a little conversation. As Robin said, the videos of our meetings are available on YouTube. So if you're really interested in the details and hearing exactly what was said, would always encourage you to actually go watch the meeting and listen to the meeting. But this is a little bit more background explanation of processes and how things shaped up, and some commentary as well.
So it's hard. It's a little bit tricky to figure out exactly where to start, but just in case you haven't been paying attention to everything that's been happening on college campuses across the country, briefly, in the spring, we had, just like on lots of other college campuses, we had groups of students that camped out to work to get the University of Minnesota to take action on the violence and devastation in Gaza, and we at the University of Minnesota, we handled it a bit differently than they did on a lot of campuses, and we're able to create some real space for people from the coalition that we're working on the actions to come and have conversations with the university administration. But I'm sure most of you probably already know this, but we had a presidential change in the middle of the summer, so it's been a bit of transition period at the University of Minnesota, to say the least. So we had interim President Ettinger up until the end of June, and then we've had a transition to our new president, Rebecca Cunningham. So now that we're caught up, So the University of Minnesota Board of Regents meets 10 times a year. And I just wanted to add this as sort of background about why we had a special meeting the other day. So we only meet 10 times a year as a full board, and we meet for 2 days at a time. And when we meet, we have almost all of our committee meetings and our meetings at the same time. We do like a lot of other stuff through the year. We do tons of events. We're like constantly in like different kinds of meetings and engaged with folks from our community, and we're in pretty much regular, like constant contact with people from the university community.
Absolutely.
But we only meet together as a full board 10 times a year.
Actually, less than that. I think it's like 8 or 9.
And so occasionally we have to have special meetings. And so in this case, President Cunningham came on in July. We had a board retreat, and then we weren't meeting again until mid-September. And so President Cunningham asked to call, I believe, to call a special meeting of the board to do 2 things. She wanted to deliver a president's report about how we are thinking about protests on campus in the fall in particular, but kind of for the moment. And then we wanted to talk about a resolution that was being really put forward by our board chair, addressing the idea of divesting our endowment from investments that are related to Gaza. And so I'm going to start with the president's report and tell you all what we heard from senior leadership and from Rebecca Cunningham about what this was and why it was needed. Jump in.
Yeah.
Anything.
No, I think that was a really good summary, kind of where we're at, why we got together and talked about that on Tuesday, and a little bit about process, which is important. And so that leading up to Tuesday's special meeting, 2 items on the agenda. The first one was about civic engagement on campus and fall planning and what that looks like. And so basically what happened, again, would encourage you to go to the website if you want to actually kind of review the document line by line, which is definitely important for some folks. It kind of codified all the current university policies related to signage, events, gatherings. We don't have all the policy names in front of us, but it codified all those policies in one document, and then had a couple sections of bullet points around do's, don'ts, and then the relevant policy citations. And so the administration has put together these resources as guidance for student groups, community groups, whoever, about what demonstrating, to be helpful about what demonstrating looks like on campus, kind of what different folks are engaged at different points. My understanding is that student affairs is kind of always going to be the first point of contact before things escalate to the Department of Public Safety or whoever else, but really starting with that, if it's a student event in particular, of course, starting with that student affairs lens, and then moving forward in terms of how the university is responding to these incidents. So I don't know if you have anything to add on the first agenda item.
Yeah, so I heard from a lot of people leading up to this meeting that they were definitely nervous that we were putting forth new policy. I had a long conversation with our new president, Rebecca Cunningham, about this, and in fact, when we were sort of talking about it, she was listing off some of the policies, and I was saying, I didn't know that was our policy, and is that a good policy? The fact is, at this moment, especially with the transition between the interim president and the president, and the semester starting imminently, we weren't actually taking up any of these policies. We weren't taking up any of the like questions around the policies and whether they were good or bad. Some of them I was like, that seems fine. Some I was like, I don't know, that doesn't gel with me. But like, these were all policies that have already been in place for, well, I don't know for how long, but they've already been in place. And so the idea was to bring them together so that we had a comprehensive understanding of what policies exist at the University of Minnesota already. I would really like for us to take up a conversation where we do a deeper dive into these policies and decide, do these reflect the values that we have at the university?
Yeah.
But that we knew could not happen in the time between when our new president came in July and the start of the semester, and knowing that there's very likely going to be a lot of action on campus this fall, we wanted to make sure that we really understood those policies. And a big part of the reason is, and I think a difference that you see at the University of Minnesota is that we do deeply value, I mean, I don't want to compare us to other campuses. That isn't really helpful. But I do want to say that we deeply value free speech, and we deeply value strong debate, and we want people to be able to demonstrate on campus and to be safe. And so if you saw any policy language in there that felt like alarming or worrisome, I just want to tell you that it's not because it was new policy, it was policy that was already in place. And the idea would be that, what I would like for us to do eventually is do an audit of this and try to determine if the policy is what we want it to be. But at the moment, it was not about creating any new policy, and we didn't vote on anything. We didn't even actually have a discussion about it. It was just a report from our new president about the policies that exist at the U.
Right.
And our goal in all of this is to promote and protect free speech and demonstration, and to keep our students and our community safe.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it was helpful from we're getting ready to fall, we're continuing to be in this national landscape of how these issues are manifesting themselves on campus. And so I think it was good to have this fall planning conversation, which I would hope and expect that the Regents can continue to monitor and support and what's going on there. But that basically summarizes the first agenda item on the docket, the special meeting docket. Short meeting because it's more focused, right? And so, or short agenda. So the second topic then was a resolution that Robin teed up well earlier on in this conversation, brought forward by the board chair around institutional neutrality when it comes to the investments for our endowment and things at the university. And so there had been some earlier conversation about this in a previous board meeting around what institutional neutrality would look like for the university. This was supposed to be at our July meeting, and so I think there was a lot of feedback at that July meeting about not in favor of the idea at the time, but what I just lost my train of thought. Not in favor of the idea at the time, but that's why we have review and action, right? So there was a period of time for regents who weren't necessarily in favor of the idea, but wanted to know more about how institutional neutrality would partner with our ESG policies, and ESG stands for
environmental, social, and is that right?
Environmental, something. Environmental, social, and something around our investments. So existing policy around socially responsible investing. How does that compare with an institutional neutrality stance? And so that exploration was then able to be done between the July meeting and this August special meeting when the resolution was brought back forward in front of the board.
Yeah. So I'll say that I voted against the resolution, and I can talk about that a little bit, but do you want to talk about, what you were thinking about when
Sure, and I'll add one more piece because when I lost my train of thought momentarily, I left one thing out. Which was, it was institutional neutrality resolution. It also specifically said no to what the UMN Divest Coalition has been asking for, and other folks around divesting from companies that do business with Israel. So it's a no to that, and then was exploring institutional neutrality. And so I voted in support of the resolution because I certainly don't think that there was a consensus position within the university community around divesting from those particular set of investments. The third thing that the resolution did, which is related to my answer here, which is to direct President Cunningham and her administration to create a policy around calling the question about future investments, because we don't really have that existing policy right now. So I view this very similarly, and neither of us were on the board at the time, but I was around as a student advocate around kind of what happened with naming. The first time renaming 4 buildings was voted down because there's no policy. And we were kind of existing in this gray area, which is not helpful, in my opinion, for boards like ours to make significant policy decisions. And so because we are still in, now in the midst formally of the administration creating a set, codifying that set of criteria and the process for groups in the university community to call the question on should we be investing in X. That's part of the reason why I supported it, and just felt like the resolution got to a good spot that made sense for where we're at now, that honors past, particularly student activism, but other groups on campus around past divestment related issues on other topics, and then was just kind of clear about where we're at with our investments with Israel right now and what that may look like in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, like the board unanimously supported it. No, didn't unanimously, except for me.
Right.
So we were missing 3 people. And
there were 3 colleagues absent as well. So we don't know what they would have done, but yeah.
So here are the reasons that I voted down the resolution. For me, I found it really overly complicated to have the word neutrality in there when we were carving out certain things. So for me, the word neutral means a very specific thing, and it just felt like it wasn't needed to use it. Like we didn't need to use it if it wasn't what we meant. And by having these carve outs, we didn't mean neutral, because you can't be neutral if you're not neutral. So I was struggling with that. I also found the resolution too broad and too vague. It didn't just address this one particular thing that it was meant to address. It addressed it in a way that made it very expansive well into the future until we actually take action to do something different, which could be decades from now. And so I felt like what we were trying to accomplish was addressing this one particular thing. And instead we basically made a decision that will go forward into lots of other potential issues, when what we wanted to do effectively was say, no, we're not there yet on divestment from Israel. The reason that I wasn't ready to vote in favor, and so I will say this, that I wasn't ready to vote on a divestment proposal because we didn't have one that, so I voted against the resolution, but I will say that from my perspective, we didn't have a divestment plan yet that had broad support from our university community. And one thing that I will say is, in the days since we passed this resolution, I've gotten as many emails from people who said, effectively thank you for not supporting the resolution, as I have from people who said, I can't believe you didn't, I'm not saying this the right way, but basically we have a split between for and against. And from my perspective, I think what we need to, and what we need to get from the folks that are working on, and I'll say this is my perspective, that doesn't mean that it's an effective path forward, because right now I'm 1 vote out of 12. But from my perspective, what we need is a proposal that has broad support in our university community, and we don't have that yet. And I do think that there is a path for that. I think that. I'm not speaking for the rest of the board, but yeah. I do think there's a path toward a broad support position, but we're not there yet. And the other thing that I didn't like about the resolution was that it asked for consensus, and I just said we don't get consensus on literally anything. But getting broad support is a different thing. Sure. So getting feeling like we've gotten to a position that most of our university community can support and feels like we're all on the same page and doing the right thing is a different thing than asking for consensus. So for me, I appreciated that a lot of the work that the board office and that our president did on the resolution was in fact in response to like concerns that I had about the resolution to begin with. And so I don't want to dismiss that in any way. And for me, it didn't get there. But, you know, that's democracy.
Right.
And so, you know, we get up the next day and we keep working on it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this one,
it's this is this week following the meeting. We've addressed the question that's been raised. We've, I think, organized, or I guess there wasn't a vote on the civic engagement work per se, but just an update from the president to the university community. But clearly activism around this issue is not over. Current events, the issue itself is still unfolding, and so fully anticipate continued conversations on our campus and what that looks like in terms of future board action, governance, conversation.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell, but definitely, Robin talked about this a little bit, but large influx of contacts into the board. Many of us received the same emails from folks, but some people I'm sure have been getting other emails from stakeholders as well around this issue. So want to emphasize the strong stakeholder outreach on this topic on all sides, which I think is part of the reason why it felt fitting to do this for our first video, because there's a lot to talk about, and I really want to make sure that folks have a little bit of an understanding of the runway of the process and how this came to be and what might happen moving forward.
Yeah. And one thing that I just want to add too is that part of the reason that we want to do these videos, and our plan is to do them going forward as well, is to create more of a dialogue between us and all of you who are, paying attention to this stuff, so that we can have more conversations about our thinking about this and how we can make these decisions better, into the future and with all of you, because this is our university.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and actually, I just to take us to a little bit of a higher note as we kind of wrap up, because I think this video so far has been longer than the actual meeting that we were in.
Yeah, this is our test run. I don't think everyone is going to be, they'll vary in length.
Yeah,
but much to talk about here.
Yeah, a lot of these are big important issues too.
Right, absolutely.
But James and I have both been really lucky this week to participate in convocation and in seeing all of our new students come to campus. I think we have over 8,000 new and transfer students coming onto the Twin Cities campus, not to mention our other system campuses. Rochester, Crookston, Morris, Duluth. We are so excited to see all the new students. Enrollment is up. The official numbers are not out yet, but tentatively enrollment is up on every single campus. I heard that yesterday from our new president, Rebecca Cunningham, and it's just really exciting. We got to go to the first football game of the year yesterday, and we didn't win, but
it's unfortunate.
But the spirits were really high, and all the new students on campus, I think, were very excited to be there and wearing their gold shirts.
Totally. There's a lot of energy, lots of exciting things happening during Welcome Week, and just as the kickoff to the school year goes, and as we mentioned at the top of the video, and here as we close out, both of us have been here for our other jobs here at the State Fair, and we have a great University of Minnesota has a great presence at the State Fair. Not only the main Crossroads building, but it's the 10-year anniversary of Research on a Stick, the Driven to Discover building, where there's a plethora of research studies from across the university here conducting their studies, their research. We have a large presence in the agriculture horticulture building through CFANS. Obviously 4-H, goes without saying, is a huge part of the Minnesota State Fair, and 4-H is related to University of Minnesota Extension. I think there's University of Minnesota stuff in the Eco Building all over the place. This has been a fun place to be, not just because of what we're doing individually and because it's the fair, but there is, as there should be, a large University of Minnesota presence here.
And you guys, like the stuff that is happening at the University of Minnesota, if you are new to the university, maybe you're one of those new students who are just coming in, it is unreal how cool the work that is happening on campus is all the time. I mean, every time I get to interact with like different researchers from across the campus, I'm just completely blown away by the work.
It's super incredible
that is happening at our university. We have so much to be proud of, and honestly, like if you are out here at the state fair, please like look around for the University of Minnesota. You can stop and get gear too, but that is like actually the least exciting part of all of it. We're just, I mean, so well represented out here, and the things that that folks on campus are doing every single day is they're like changing lives. I mean, quite
seriously.
Absolutely. Everything from healthcare research to agriculture research to like, just everything.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very well. That's very true.
So get out and like talk to the people here if you're at the state fair. It's a lot of fun. It's really worth it. And then, as you're just getting onto campus, like our number one goal is for you to have an amazing and fruitful and just like eye-opening experience, and to just like be safe and be well, and figure out how you can like contribute to the state and this world that we live in.
Yeah, well said. Couldn't agree more. Well put.
So,
yeah.
All right, well, with that, we'll wrap our very first video. We would love to hear from you. Honestly, if you have any feedback or thoughts or ideas, if there was anything that we said that you think is like resonates with you or the opposite, let us know, because we are your representatives at the University of Minnesota, and it is our goal to bring the perspective of the folks out there to the university governance. So
thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll be back for the next one after the September meeting.
Thanks, everyone.